Your Google, instead of being like someone trying to trick Google by doing SEO, let's think like Google. So let's talk SEO. There's a bunch of tools, and I'll go through a bunch of them, and I'll try to show you where most of it is free, because you could easily spend $4,000 or $5,000 a month using the different tools that I'm going to show you.
Yes, and Dennis, I think where we're hoping you could start is on the Evolved Broker podcast website, if that's possible.
Yep. Oops. We go to Evolve, and we think everyone should be doing a podcast.
I'm with you. I am of the belief every business needs a podcast.
Yeah. Even if you don't want to be famous, even if you don't think you have a lot of time, even if whatever the reason is, because simply making connections and building relationships is the name of the game. People know you because of who you are, not because, you know more than about insurance or cybersecurity than the other guy, because none of them really know, right? Just like with surgeons, you don't really know which surgeon's better than the other surgeon, unless you look at the stats or whatever. So there's a lot of these tools. My favorite overall is SEMrush. SEMrush is a little expensive. It's a couple $1,000 a month to see the kinds of things that we like to look at, but they cover everything on local and paid and SEO and even like personal branding and mentions and things like that. So they're kind of like the best. They're kind of the best. They're like the gold standard, but they're also kind of, there's a price to pay with it too.
So you would describe them as like an overall digital marketing tool.
Yeah, and they raised a whole bunch of money too. They went public and hired a ton of engineers, and this kind of thing. So this is what happens and they've been around for a long time. They've been one of the longest ones. But they raised a bunch of money, so they improved their tool, and imagine what happened. Hired a bunch of people, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to compare a few of these different tools, and we'll start with this site. So first thing I like to look at is, what are the things that you rank on in the first 100 search results? And we know, where do you hide a dead body? On the second page of Google. Meaning if you're not on the first page, it doesn't matter. So you're on the first position, you're in the first 10 positions on Sean Brady Lacrosse, Nick Lindsay, and these other folks. And usually when you have a podcast, your guests, you're able to rank on, because there's not as many search results that are competing for Trevor Baldwin, right? Look at Trevor Baldwin, we could see that. And who are the other people you're ranking number 22 on his name? That means he's probably been in a lot of podcasts.
Yes.
Wow. Here he is, right? All the stuff about him. And there's different types of results. We talked about last time with universal search, there's news, there's image, there's videos, there's shopping, there's, movies, there's different kinds of categorized information. So it's not just web pages like with Spotify, right? This is showing up here. There you are, 22. And question is, why do you think that on his name, you rank number 22 versus why would Google think that all these other results would deserve to rank higher? Why would, so if we're inside the mind of Google, inside the Google brain, how do they decide, right? That's the key thing to understand.
Okay.
What's to say that his LinkedIn deserves to be number one versus his website versus, whoever, his Facebook? This is the wrong Trevor Baldwin.
Completely the wrong Trevor Baldwin. And Dennis, I assume it's because LinkedIn has maybe the most full, in-depth information on Trevor, and it's truly is him, compared with alternative results that might pop up.
Yeah.
And also, his business website, he might be only mentioned on the about page somewhere. So I'm sure Baldwin Risk Partners would yield obviously different results.
Yeah. In this case, LinkedIn is an authoritative search for names. So when you search on someone's name, LinkedIn's usually going to be the top three, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe the podcast, maybe their own personal brand site, maybe their Facebook or Twitter. And to Google, LinkedIn is super powerful and has a domain rating of 98. And it's on a 100-point scale. Well, I guess you could have a 0, actually. So it's a 0 to 100. It's a log scale. Obviously, Google and Facebook and these kinds of sites are 95 to 100. And other people's random websites might be a little bit less. And you guys, don't worry about this. It's a 1. So it's relatively low because you don't have a lot of links coming in. So we look at the amount of link juice. Like, think of all these sites as like, bottles of water or cups that are, and each site that links to another site is like pouring a little juice from one cup to another cup. And so the net of all this transferring of juice tells you what your domain rating is, which is one of many factors. And the other people that do SEO professionally, typically at this point, they will argue and say, yes, well, domain rating is only one thing and it's not as important. And there's all these other factors. Yes, that's true. But as a general sense of how much link juice you're collecting. It's pretty good to look at. And if we go back to the site, we can see that this rating of 1, which is low, is because the 187 links that you've gotten from the 8 referring domains, these links are not carrying much power. Most of these are going to be no follow, meaning they don't pass juice, or they're from internal sites. So these are all the sites that link to you, basically that are voting for you and they're passing juice. And we see that these are mostly pretty low. They're zeros, right? But that's okay. When you start a podcast, don't worry about, and some of them may be spamish sorts of links. What is this? Caterpillar, Quillfish, Squarespace?
That is something to do with the back end of our website. That is us.
Okay.
So, like when I'm in Squarespace editing web pages, that's the domain that I'm seeing while actively making changes.
Okay. Well, we think that most websites, unless you are doing e-commerce and you're on Shopify, should be WordPress. And a lot of people like Wix and Squarespace and the other folks would like to argue, and we've had lots of these arguments, but unless you're doing something really weird, you should just pretty much be on WordPress. Unless you really know what you're doing, you should be on WordPress, because this weird thing is screwing with your SEO.
Got it.
Yeah. And if we look at the links, of these backlinks from these 8 domains, let's see who these domains are. You have a link from couponsale.in in India. Of course, from the company involved in Best Health Insurance, GetInsuranceQuotes.net. Okay. This looks like link spam. My guess is that these things might. Have you ever heard of something called Google Bowling?
No.
I'm not saying this is the case here. I'd have to see a lot more of this for me to declare that this is the case, but I could screw you over without you even knowing it by just buying a bunch of really crappy links, buying links for you. And you can do that for competitors and basically hose them, and they won't understand why.
So you're saying someone could buy like the domain name GetInsuranceQuotes.net and then host put the
No, here's the deal. Let me tell you a little bit more context. So it used to be, even as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, that if you wanted to rank on something in Google, you would just go out to these link farms and buy, you spend like $50 and buy a bunch of crap links, and then you would move up in the rankings, right? And literally the job of an SEO, and this is something that only the only industry people know this, right? People who do SEO professionally, this is like the dirty secret. You're not supposed. It's like magicians have their little, magic castle, and they're not allowed to tell everyone who's not a magician how they do the tricks. So I'm telling you the SEO thing. What SEOs do, and a lot of them still do it, but they don't realize times have changed, is that, a client says, I want to rank on whatever keyword. You're like, okay, great. And then they just go to these link places, these directories, third-party link networks, and there's all these different ways of buying links by different words, but basically you just buy a bunch of crappy links. And then your client moves up in the rankings because the Google and Yahoo and MSN or Bing, they would just literally calculate the amount of link juice that you were collecting, and whoever had the most link juice and had the right keywords linking to them, that you would just move up in the rankings. Like the search engine was kind of dumb. So that's what I never did that, because I knew that was dirty. And I worked at a search engine, so I knew better than that, right? But that's what everyone else did. And, I like this. Well, I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole, but basically that's what people did. And Google started penalizing people over the last 7 or 8 years about that. And now when they catch you buying crappy links, then they will penalize you. So now the reverse of that is, if you want to hose a competitor, you would just buy crappy links for them. And then Google will think, oh, this guy's trying to buy links, try to trick me. It's kind of like a false flag thing, right? So Google Bowling is when you buy links on behalf of your competitor. Not that any of us would do that, because I consider that unethical.
Yeah.
But there's enough people to do it that you just need to be aware that this is something that people do.
Wow.
Okay.
So coupons, you have no reason to be on couponsale.in. Okay.
So what is on couponsale.in? Is it the Evolve Broker podcast? Is that in there somewhere?
This looks like a spam site. Oh yeah, for sure. Look at this. So this is a link site. This is basically a link directory site. So the people that don't know so the very junior SEO people, they look at this site and say, wow, it's a DR47. Holy moly. You think, okay, wow, if I get a link on a DR47 site, that's powerful. But then look at what's being like this, there's no actual content. Let me ask you this. Do you think this is a site that a human would find value in?
No.
So it's purely a link site. And there's a ton of this stuff on the internet that probably used to work for Google and maybe to some degree still works to rank on Bing and Yahoo, but nowadays it doesn't. And so they've generated 350,000 links from 7,500 referring domains. This does not look like a normal signature. It's like a lie detector. We're looking across multiple factors to see, what's going on.
Does this mean that there's 817,000 links on this website?
Well, here's the links. Yeah, it's a little ridiculous.
So who benefits here, Dennis? But if this was
they're selling links. These guys are obviously selling links, right? You can see this. And if you want
Instagram bots or whatever it is, that's the sole purpose.
This is just the ugly underbelly of the internet. Okay, this exists just like porn exists, just like gambling exists. All these things exist. It's on the internet. Okay, and they're linking to you. So if we run a report here, if I run a link analysis, I think we will determine which of your links are toxic links. Now I'm switching to SEMrush.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I've got to configure an audit. We got to let the audit run. It'll take 24 hours for the audit to run. But basically, it's going to come out of the links that you have. We're going to determine which of them are garbage links that we then need to submit what's called a disavow request, which is telling Google through what used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, what's called Search Console now. We submit a report to Google saying, okay, these links from couponsale.in, we have nothing to do with this. We did never, maybe someone did it to us. It's not ours. It's called a disavow. It's free. It's easy to do. There's a bunch of little things you need to do that these guys could hurt you. It's funny because they're the highest authority. They're 47. They're the highest authority of all these other sites. These are zero. Why would you be on carinsurancenow.info? What the heck is that?
I have no idea.
People are linking to you. Oh boy, it's another one of these ones. Yeah. I think you already know what these you already see what these things look like, right?
Right.
These are not for humans. That's why you don't see them. They're made strictly to try to fool search engines. And they have no power anyway. This one's got a DR 0, so I don't even know why they're trying to do that. Yeah.
Of that list, for what it's worth, Prime IS is legit. That's a business owned by one of our podcast guests who his marketing coordinator reshared material from the podcast on their site.
Yeah. So here's the best way to think about this, so it doesn't get too technical. Think of this think of internet rankings or Google rankings as like a popularity contest. And so you want to get the most votes. But sometimes, you try to fool Google by giving them a bunch of fake votes. So you want as many votes as possible, obviously. But you want votes from people that are credible. A vote from someone who's popular, who's an influencer, who's well known in the insurance space or whatnot. Then because think about if I go to listen notes and I can see that the Evolve Broker podcast has a 10% global rank, 24, listen score, and I can see all the episodes that you've had and who you're with. You can think of this kind of as like a vote, right? So if Rick Lindsay's on your podcast, that's a vote in some way of Rick Lindsay endorsing, yeah, I believe that this podcast, I'm willing to tie my name to this podcast. And if you have all these people, this is clearly sending a signal to Google into the user. So let's see, if you ever pretend you're Google and you're looking through this podcast, all the episodes here, and you see, Trevor Baldwin Risk Partners, first female CEO of Lloyd's of London. Well, it's pretty clear, what the theme is here, right? So you see all this, and all of a sudden you see like some coupon thing. Well, that doesn't fit the theme of what's going on here, right? So the higher power the guests are, so the content is clearly high authority. If people really like the podcast with Mark Cohen, then we're going to see that result in more votes because people are going to share the article, they're going to share links to it, they're going to tweet about it. There's going to be all these signals that Google's looking for. So when these signals appear, then, and I do a search, I should be able to see that, right? Because I'm looking at it as if I'm thinking, okay, I'm Google. What is Google looking for? Do a search for Evolve Broker podcast. Of course, you take the #1 spot. And I see you have 4 site links. 6 is the maximum. So this is pretty good. You only get site links here if you're in the #1 spot and they believe that you're high authority. And the number of site links is based on how high authority you are, right? And, they got your YouTube, Apple Podcasts. That's great. And there's not a lot of competition. Here's all the related searches. See, they understand cybersecurity, right? You can see there's 500,000 results that are competing for this Evolve Broker podcast name. But it's not actually, it sounds like a lot, but it's actually not if I do an in title, so how many web pages have Evolve Broker Podcast in the title? There's only 704. So that's actually the true competition, right? And then I can, winnow this down by other search operators. These are all called search operators. So another search operator is site : search. So I want to know, what does Google think on the website? How many web pages do we have? We have 32 on the Evolve Broker Podcast, right? I'm just looking at all these things using diagnostic tools that Google has. So how many people have you interviewed? How many episodes are there of the podcast?
17.
Okay. So I see listen notes of the other places. Is that what they said here? Something like that. Yeah. And then maybe I can see how many podcasts you've been on. And there's a couple other Pat Costellos too. You're obviously not related to Elvis Costello, right?
No, I'm not.
People ask you that.
But Elvis, actually, that wasn't his real name. He just took that name.
Oh. So you've been on these other podcasts.
Yep.
And it looks like you've been on 46 podcasts.
No, I definitely haven't been on 46 podcasts. I'd say only a handful.
Okay, maybe this is some other. Is this some other? Maybe some of these aren't you.
Yeah. Game on, nada.
Ryan Hanley I was on that one.
Okay. Anyway, you see what's going on here. So if I can see this, then Google can see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is not a hard and fast rule, but one of the things we like to look for a domain. So this is me coming from me as a search engine engineer, right? So when I worked at Yahoo, we see trustworthy domains as if you have at least 100 web pages, right? Because if the website has only one web page, then it's like, okay, it's just a landing page. It's not actually a website. So we like to see 100, and then we like to see an age domain. So, I'm the search engine. If you just put up your website last week, I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna sandbox you. I'm going to not exactly trust you until I start to see basically like a credit score, if you will, for your behavior, right?
Makes sense.
I'm going to see a steady pattern of traffic coming to your site, of mentions. I'm going to see that your content is dripping out over time. I want to see that the links you're getting is growing over time. Because if you, let's say your website is an age website, it's 10 years old, but then like all the links came in one particular day. Like, I don't know, that doesn't look legit. Looks like maybe you bought a bunch of links or maybe some weird thing happened. So we are, when we look at your site, not coupon sale, I want to see that let me go back to where we were. I want to see what looks like a healthy signature of what's occurring here. So if I look, so your organic traffic was up in May and then it fell down. So something happened here. And the number of organic keywords that you have been increasing over time. And now I see, here's what these keywords are. I'm just triangulating between all these different tools. I'll make it a little bit bigger in case you're old like me. So this tool says you got 36 keywords and it's got a slightly different mix. All these SEO tools will give you a slightly different set of numbers because all of them have to attempt to crawl the entire internet, which is really an incredible feat to try to do, especially if they're trying to keep their data fresh. It's like crawl the entire internet every day, which is like 1 trillion links. So Google's trying to crawl the entire internet too. That's a very expensive thing to do. So the fact that these tools, the SEO tools, basically have to build their own Google, if you will, because they have to replicate, they have to pull in all the data and then score according to the factors that they think that Google's using. So think about how ridiculous that is and how expensive that is. So that's why these tools cost a lot of money.
So Dennis, would you recommend that, like if an agency owner is listening to this, that they should be using SEMrush or another SEO analysis tool on their day-to-day?
Day-to-day, no. It's something every month you should come in and look at. It's like if you're, you want to lose weight or something, you can weigh yourself every day, but you don't need to look at it every day. Like, you're in a stock portfolio, you don't need to look at the stock price every single minute because it goes up and down and, whatever it is, but look at the general direction of what's happening. I would think that the tool that everyone should start with is Search Console. And this is something that most people are not even aware of. This is, Google has dozens of tools. Most people think Google's just a search engine. Google gives you this incredible SEO tool. And this one's free. What?
Is it free?
It's free. And I consider it the best SEO tool because it's actually from Google. So if I come in and I look at, let's see, show one of my friends. He's an eye doctor in Phoenix. Now remember, this is not the same thing as Google Analytics, although you can tie your Google Search Console with the Google Analytics. And by the way, to get the Google Search Console, you just go ask your web person whoever's in charge of your website to verify that you own the site. There's a couple ways to verify that it's your site, and then Google's going to give you all this information, right?
Cool.
So they're showing me where my traffic's coming from. They're showing me, do I have problems with my web pages? And Google literally say like, hey, these web pages are loading slow. These web pages are having problems because of core web vitals. These, they'll tell you, they tell you all this stuff. They have this new thing, Search Console Insights, and they'll tell you what keywords you're ranking on, but they don't give you as much data as the third-party tools because they kind of don't want to tell you because they're afraid that you're going to try to, reverse engineer their stuff, whatever, right?
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So then let's see, it just switched me back. This is a silly thing because you log in with Google and then I'm logging into a bunch of different things. So I had to keep logging back into the main one where my search console is. So I have the search console under access at blitzmetrics.com. That's the shared one that all of us look at. So now they're giving us, here we go. See, now we're back to Arizona's vision. So you guys, if you have multiple websites, you got to make sure you're, looking at the right one, because we have some big websites and some small websites here. So in the last month, we've had a couple thousand page views. People stay for a minute per page, and it's telling me something about what's the content and where people are coming in. Now you're going to notice this looks sort of similar to Google Analytics, doesn't it? But not exactly. Have you seen this before?
No. Phil, have you seen it?
I've seen the search console for evolvemga.com, but I've not been on this insights portion.
So it happens to be that this guy who's an eye doctor in Arizona, he's ranking on his own name, and he's ranking on eye doctor near me. And there's all these other keywords that he's ranking on. Eye doctor Phoenix, eye exam, optometrist near me. So that's kind of nice, right? And his office is in Ahwatukee. So you'd expect that. You'd expect city name plus insurance broker, business insurance plus city, state, the near me search has become, because of mobile, has become often one of the most popular queries in any area because people just type in such and such near me, right? Or a consumer. I know we're talking B2B, but even with B2B, we see a lot of consumer-like behavior, right? And look at this, top referring links. So Google's telling us which websites are giving us the most SEO power. It's kind of good to know. Often it's going to be suppliers. Podcasts are a great way to generate link power, by the way. So when you have a podcast, when you have a guest on your podcast, you want to have a page about them like you do, but you also want to write a summary that they can place on their site. And you could say, Pat was so inspired by your podcast episode that he wrote this as a guest post for you to put on your site, which is just another way to get them to link to you, okay? In a legitimate way. It's a completely legitimate technique to use. And look, we're in Google's Search Console, which is the SEO tool. It used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, but it's now called Search Console. So it's about SEO, okay? Well, if this tool is all about SEO, and here's your links, and here's the keywords you come in, all the SEO things you'd expect, why are they showing social media here? Why do you think they're showing social media in the Search Console?
Searches on that platform?
It's related to that, yeah. Well, there's searches and there's traffic coming from social media to the site. It's that social media is a ranking factor in search results. And Google has sworn up and down the last 15 years that it wasn't a ranking factor. But now they're including this. So but think about that. Does it make sense that the traffic on social media or people talking about you on social or whatever should have something that, if you're popular on Twitter, shouldn't that affect your Google search results? I mean, shouldn't that be a signal that Google should look at?
You think?
I would think.
Yeah. So if someone's doing a really good job on LinkedIn and they got a lot of followers and their content's getting engagement and likes, comments, and shares and all that stuff, we're writing broetry. Do you think that Google should take that into account?
I do.
Yeah,
and they do.
It definitely adds to how legitimate that person or company might be.
Yeah. So now when you search people's names, like you saw, searching on Trevor Baldwin or whatever, it shows up in Google. And I do more searches on Trevor Baldwin. I will see a mix of things. Of course, they're going to want to favor their own stuff because YouTube is owned by Google. So they're going to try to favor that. But look, now there's a Facebook video showing up in Google. Isn't that ridiculous? Have you seen that?
No.
And here's our thing here. So why are these three outranking us?
Business insurance has a large inherent following. So I would venture to guess that video's gotten a good, they probably get, I don't know how many visitors to their website per month, but a ton. They're kind of like the top magazine or web publication.
Is it because those videos have more views?
And also, so that's one signal, but also you have only 51 seconds here. So they're looking at engagement. So if they see watch time, if they see people are watching, let's say this is the same clip, I can tell 4 minutes and 39 seconds. If people are watching 2 minutes, 3 minutes of it, that's a huge signal on video. And the average on YouTube for podcasts is probably 4 or 5 minutes. So the previews are great, but if this preview is 51 seconds, the longest your average watch time can be is 51 seconds. So let's see. Anyway, you see like here's stuff on Twitter.
Two above the highlight is the full episode, which is 40 minutes. Right below that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the site.
Okay, this one. Yeah. So we just need to, it's a chicken and the egg, because to rank in Google is looking at engagement because they want to give the user the best experience. So if people come here and they're, it's a 40-minute long podcast and Google knows that, and people are staying for 15 or 20, which is a really good sign, then, then they're going to show it higher in the search results, which gives more traffic, so you just keep moving up as long as your engagement's high until a certain point it just settles. So the upshot of this whole thing is have such a good podcast that people really enjoy, like the people enjoy it, which then Google can determine through all these signals that people are enjoying that content. Yeah. Likewise, do you want to know the number one way to assassinate somebody besides buying garbage links?
What's that?
Well, you do this. You search, and I'm searching, and there's this one. So I click on that one, and then I look at it, and I'm like, oh, this website's taking too long, or I don't like it, or whatever it might be. And then I click back, and then I click to the next result or whatever, which I'm not going to do here, but that's called a click back. So a click back to the search engine is that user didn't like, so most people, they just don't even read the thing. They just go ahead and click on the first one. So they click on it, then they click back, and then they go to the next result. That sends a signal like, oh, this isn't very good. So it will ding you basically when there's and because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to click on my competitors' ads because I'm going to charge them up, like that actually doesn't hurt them at all. What hurts them is a signal of a bad experience. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've found myself when I'm researching something, if the first couple links are not great, I'm just kind of going through the list.
Yeah. So when I was at Yahoo, me just thinking that I was smarter than I was, I thought, yeah, we want to keep people on Yahoo as much as possible. So we were looking at how much time people were spending on the site and how many searches they did. I mean, you would think that makes sense, right? We want more people to search on Yahoo, right? And this is before there was a Google. But then some of my other colleagues said, wait, actually, we want people to leave. So if people are clicking on this and they're clicking on number 2 and number 3, that means they're not getting what they're looking for. So we're giving them a bad experience. So we actually want to get them away from the site as fast as possible and then have them not come back until they search for something completely different. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
The metric I initially thought we needed to optimize for at Yahoo was actually the wrong thing. So,
right. It's like I believe it's Hinge, the dating app. Their motto is made to be deleted or something along those lines.
Yeah, we had Yahoo Personals, which we made $100 million a year on that dating site. So it's basically me and a few engineers built that site. And of course, we had a general manager, and her goal was to make as much money as possible, of course. But we found in the algorithm that if we help people actually find dates and actually have great connections and that kind of thing, people wouldn't stay members because they would get married and, this kind of thing. So if someone has been on the dating site for a year and a half, that means either they're just trying to get hookups or we're not giving them what they want, right? So it's the same thing. Like Google, you want the thing to be like, would you rather have a 3-hour heart operation or a 12-hour heart operation, right? I mean, the 12-hour heart operation, maybe something didn't go as well, or, you kind of don't want it to be longer, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we want to do everything possible to send a good signal. One of the easiest things to fix is, you want to go to the podcast thing or Evolve in? You can go to either one.
Whatever you prefer.
Let's go to this one. Okay, so this one's got more power on it, right? So Chrome, which is made by Google. Most people don't know these kinds of things, which is kind of crazy. So this is inside everyone's Chrome. So I use something called developer tools, and I can now see, I can reload this website here, and I can see that this website, so a lot of people think that when you load a website, it's just one thing that comes over, one file, but it's actually lots of little pieces that get put together. And these are all called GET requests. So to load your website, there's 211 files basically they have to come across to load this website. And that is 17 megabytes, which is heavy, and it's taken 11 seconds. But the document object model loaded 1.6 seconds, and then basically the site's usable after 5 or 6 seconds, even though it takes 11 seconds to load. And that whole thing is expressed in the timeline up here. I can't move my thing. For some reason, I can't move this thing. Anyway, there's this waterfall of all the, you see this, of the elapsed time, all these things are happening, right? So your website is a little slow. And so if your website is slow, that leads to a bad user experience, which then Google looks at this and says, well, anyone who loads slow, I'm going to not put them high up in the search results. So then they built this tool, it's called Lighthouse, and it renders a mobile and desktop score. And it's just like Google PageSpeed Insights, and it will tell us what's going on. But I can actually go to PageSpeed Insights. This is not, so don't kill the messenger. People like, oh, Dennis gave me a bad score. No, this is Google's tool. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, make sure I've got it properly here. It'll give the same thing here. There's many ways to get the Google's tools. Okay. So we're going to run a slightly different report here. This is free. Most people are shocked when they get their score. They give you a desktop and a mobile score. And usually when the number's low, as in less than 90, then they go run to whoever built their website and complain. Well, this guy Dennis, ran Google's report and said that your the website you built is slow. And then they're going to make all these excuses about how, this page speed doesn't matter, or they use some other tool that actually says they're good, or they use this really fancy, content management. Look, if you want to rank in Google, do you think it's important to play by Google's rules?
Yes.
You have to play by Google's rules. You cannot argue, okay? They control the thing. You have a 17.
Okay.
But
so if you have a low score, do you have actionable ways that we can increase the speed?
Yes. Check this out. So they didn't just, nail you with the 17 and run away, go, nah. They said, well, here's why. It's because it's taking you too long to load, and there's all, anyway, so here's what it looks like. And so here's the different thing. 8 seconds of this is due to unnecessary JavaScript. Wow, let's fix that. So they literally click on each of these things and they explain you have some of these things here that you're not serving the images the right way, or you're not using CSS sprites. We have all this unnecessary bloated code that you don't need, because some people have a bunch of plugins on their website, which are not necessary because a developer just put them in there, or there's things that they don't use anymore that are still there, or, here, all these different things. Some of these images are not. So they literally tell you, they're literally telling you what to fix here. And I think that if you were on WordPress, this would almost instantly be fixed.
Wow. So Dennis, that's
on WordPress.
That's huge. I just want to pause there for a sec. So let's just say we were to come out with a WordPress version of our website. Would that do any damage to us? Because I know you mentioned there is an element associated with how long a website's been around. If we switch to WordPress, do we get dinged for doing that?
The content management system doesn't matter to Google. Okay. But here's the deal. If you do switch, and anyone who wants to switch between any of the content management systems, you can, but just make sure you don't lose any of the existing pages that you have indexed. Just remember here, we're looking at Search Console, and they're telling us from a URL, what we're here at coverage, they're telling us we have, 106 valid URLs. So these 106 pages here, I want to make sure that I don't lose any of them, right? So I want to see the detail on these pages. Often when you switch over, you might lose some of the pages.
Yeah.
Just because they're category pages or tag pages. WordPress tends to be, without getting too geeky, WordPress tends to be just a little smarter when it comes to managing tags and link juice flowing between different parts of the site. So, just for anyone who's not doing this professionally, just know that if you use WordPress, you're already 90% of the way there with your SEO.
Yeah. So is there a simplistic way to transfer the web pages we have using Squarespace to
Oh yeah, there's tons of tools and utilities that do that for free. There's tools that go back and forth. You can go from WordPress to Squarespace. I'll just show you. And you could go down a huge rabbit hole here, but I'll just show you. Squarespace migration to WordPress. Okay, like they're already auto completing this because they know that this is a lot of people that are doing this, right? And there's all these articles on how to do it, and there's tools where you just click the thing and they'll just go ahead and do it for you, right? Some people want to charge you, some of these they just tell you what to do. Like here it is. Now, of course, Squarespace doesn't. Here it is. Moving from WordPress to Squarespace. Well, it's kind of like people are leaving California. They're not coming to California right now. So for various reasons, okay? Whatever your political belief is, there's people leaving California. California is too expensive. Anyway, whatever. All right. So this is Google's tool, PageSpeed Insights. It has a mobile and a desktop score. Often the mobile score is the horrendous number because whoever built the website, or if it's on Squarespace, it was designed for desktop. But the odds are, if you look at Google Analytics, that 70 to 80% of your traffic, even in B2B, is going to be mobile. Increasingly, it's mobile.
That's
so
wild.
I bet the desktop score is like 55 or something like that. 37.
Yeah.
Well, the desktop score is usually a lot better. But when the website's too big, as in the files are really big, and people are trying to load it on mobile, often they don't have their internet speed's not as fast. Plus, the screen is smaller. There's all these things that make it just a worse experience on mobile compared to desktop. Now, if we go back to the site, and here we are back in the Chrome developer tools, and they're breaking down the same thing here, right? This is called Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a tool within a tool. So Google built Google Chrome, which is the browser. Then they have this thing called developer tools, which shows us all the code and all these things that are here and the items that are being loaded. And then within here, they have a tool inside a tool inside a tool called Lighthouse. And Lighthouse is also breaking down. I can inspect all the elements and see what's going on here. I can look at any one of these elements and see what's going on. I'm looking for things that are big or things that are slowing down the timeline here, or things that are red, which means like I don't see any red, but there's a ton of JavaScript. Wow, I can't imagine why you need so much JavaScript. That just seems a little unnecessary. And most JavaScript is loading synchronously, meaning like each of these JavaScripts has to load before the next JavaScript can load. And then you have this gigantic pileup of all these things that are waiting, which is slow down the website.
I think that's those pop-ups, Pat.
Like the get a quote pop-up?
Because look, there's two stacked on top on Dennis's screen right now, and he's already closed one out that had come open too. So that's obviously something for us to discuss. Dennis, for what it's worth, I inherited our website. And so kind of started from scratch with a consultant in Ahrefs, like checking out our health, and we weren't healthy. Yeah. We're in the 60s. So our first priority was to get that up. And I think we're at a 99 as far as that's concerned. But now we have our next batch. So I think the JavaScript is coming from those pop-ups.
Oh, well, but you have so many pieces of JavaScript. I can't imagine you have like 50 pop-ups, So now we're looking at it on an iPhone 10. We can look at it on an iPad. We can see what's going on here. And the site may load differently. So just reload this now on an iPad and see, is it faster? Are you using caching so that, it's reloading? It doesn't have to reload stuff that it's already downloaded, but it's still pretty bad at 5.5 seconds here. And it, of course, depends on your internet speed and, this kind of thing. But
yeah. Well, Dennis, in the interest of time, I know we have like about 4 or 5 minutes left in what we initially planned out. The move to WordPress is one of the most actionable insights that I've taken away from this. Yeah. If there's anybody else that's watching this, that's, looking for the first way to improve their website and their SEO, along with adding over 100 web pages.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you say, like, here's the next 3 things you should do?
Yeah. For everyone who's been patient enough to listen to this whole thing, I'm just going to go ahead and just give you the summary, or you can take this part and put it in the beginning.
Yes.
So here it is. Number 1, be on WordPress. I don't want to argue all the other platforms. Number 2, get to 100 pages. So every podcast episode, turn it to its own URL with a transcription and some thoughts. Don't just put the link there. Don't just put a YouTube, like actually write out something on what the highlights are, which is what some people call show notes. 3 is you can share those show notes or snippets of articles that you write from that podcast as a guest post that you put on their site, which will give you a link back. 4, site-wide SSL. So whatever your, GoDaddy or whatever your host, they will allow you to get an SSL certificate to go across the entire site. That'll make your analytics work properly. 5 is make sure you integrate your search console with your Google Analytics and your Google ads and all that, because Google's going to tell you when there's problems. Google, if you want to rank in Google, then you need to use Google's tools. And Google literally will tell you what's going on. Oh, I got 2 pages that have a problem here. Oh, I probably need to fix them. Right? They're telling me this. And the last piece, make sure your website loads fast. So don't use some crappy host that is like a shared server where you're paying $5 a month for hosting. You might have to pay $10 or $20 a month. You might have to go to a Flywheel and pay 20, 30 bucks a month, but it's no joke. Like if your code is bloated and you're on a shared server, or worse, like some $1 a month hosting kind of thing, you're sharing that server with thousands of other websites that are just going to be really slow. So your speed's really important. Your website should load in under 2 seconds. And then if you're past all these things that I just mentioned, great. Now it's time to go into advanced things, which is looking at how you rank on other people's names and trying to build links and doing fancier sorts of things. Yeah, like going across all your channels. Actually, another thing instead of the other advanced stuff is make sure any content that you have you have different variations of it. So you want to have a lot of these images and video snippets, and you want to cross post it. So honor them on LinkedIn, honor them on Twitter, like little highlights, those little sound bites. Have blog posts. Have if you even want to put it on Instagram or whatever, we find that that's actually, again, Instagram and Facebook. Instagram's owned by Facebook. We find that actually influences search rankings. Why? Because with search, Google's showing you a mix of things. It's called universal search, but they're going to show you all these other kinds of things too. Maybe your office and maps, right? All of these things can help you rank. Search is not just a text game. Search is now a social and a video and a shopping. And look at all these other things. I mean, probably not flights and books, but there's so many other ways to try to show up in the search results.
Yeah. And one thing you mentioned last time we spoke, Dennis, was having a video for every single web page.
Yeah.
Is that still something that you recommend?
Oh, I believe every video you have, you should turn into a web page. But I don't know if every web page has to have a video on it.
Okay, cool.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I know on our end, Phil and I have a lot of things that we've taken away from this that we can look to implement immediately. And frankly, we've actually even been talking about a whole website overhaul. So we're excited to improve.
Yeah. Well, Phil and Pat, I'm excited to see you guys do this. And by the way, for anyone listening, please don't just knee-jerk think, oh, I need to redesign my website. I can't tell you how many times people feel like they need to rebuild their website. Yes, there's things to make it load faster and all that, but before you pull the trigger on spending $5,000 for someone to do all this kind of stuff, see if you can fix it through very simple things like the hosting and site-wide SSL and getting more content up. Usually doing that will fix 80-90% of the problems before you have to, and the whole thing, like every couple of years, I need to redesign the website because code doesn't rust. It's not like it gets old or anything like that.
Right.
But please don't confuse redesigning the website to make it look fresh. I hear all these people like, I need a fresh website. What do you mean? You don't need your website just doesn't have your information on it. That don't mix this. So the design of the website, like the logos and the colors, are different from actually the content, which is actually different than making it load fast. So think of it as like, I need a new purse. Maybe you probably need to have more money in your purse. That's probably, let's get the things in your purse versus the purse, or the shelves that you have versus the books on the bookshelf. Like those are separate things. So most people, they confuse those. So they do, I need to redesign the whole website, when really design versus hosting versus the content are all separate things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So everyone think about that, because if you go to a web person, a web designer, and you ask them, should I redesign my website? Their answer is a little biased. And the answer is no, you don't need to redesign your website. You have a content and a speed issue. Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And Dennis, I really appreciate you clarifying, sharing your perspective, your expert knowledge. And I'm excited to talk again once we make some enhancements and some changes, see where we're at, see where we're ranking, see the domain power that we have. And Phil, I'm sure, a lot of this stuff is right up your alley as well. So I'm excited to chat with you after this.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. And then if you want, I want to show you, maybe not this session because you've used up an hour, but I want to show you what I think is the best lead gen technique for any professional service, whether it's selling insurance, real estate, or mortgage, or whatever, and it's free and it's easy. So if you guys want, let me know and we'll set up another 30 minutes or whatever.
Sounds good.
Let's do that.
All right, guys. Well, Dennis, thank you again for the time, man. Really appreciate it. I hope everything goes well in the conference.